Welcome back. I'm Hesse McGraw, and I'm here with Jessica Phifer from Christie's discussing the artworks in CAMH's 2020 art auction, which is now open for bidding. Bidding closes on Saturday, June 27th at 9 p.m. So be sure to check it out. And here we'll jump into part two. So the first workup is a piece by Thomas Lanigan-Schmidt. And Thomas is an artist who was featured in CAMH's Stonewall 50 exhibition a few years ago. Thomas was known as a pioneering gay artist who was honored at the White House in 2009 for his participation in the 1969 Stonewall Rebellion. And he's really seen as a precursor to Jeff Koons in terms of his intentional use of kitsch. So this piece, which of course has Judy Garland at the center, is kind of riotous, raucous collage assemblage, which uses tinsel and glitter and pipe cleaners to create an intimate yet whimsical collage. It's really wonderful piece that has a dynamism to it. Thank you to Thomas for sharing this work with us. Okay, next up is Lisa Lapinski and her work Untitled from 2014. This work has a richness to it in terms of the material and its dimension. It's comprised of wax blinds, window blinds, and resin. And I think, as with many of Lisa's works, there's a sense that the work is mining popular vernacular and cultural forms, but as well stitching that together with decorative arts and crafts traditions. So I would say it's really it's a sculpture. It's a wall-mounted sculpture that is just an inch deep, but in that dimension has a real depth to it. Lisa is an assistant professor of sculpture at Rice University, and in her over 2 decades of work creates uncanny objects which engage complex symbolism and themselves have a richness in terms of their formal qualities. So it's really a jewel of a piece, and we're so excited to be able to offer this.
So next up is Eva LeWitt. This piece is titled Yellow Loops, Blue Dots from 2020. Eva was born in Italy, lives and works in New York, and I was really delighted to get to learn about her through the process of preparing for the auction. Her works vary between sculpture and site-specific installation, and tends to employ soft, pliable, responsive materials like acetate and latex and foam, goal being to create these very optically sumptuous and dizzying arrangements of geometric form, hanging geometric forms, and that's very much what we get here. I think she's wanting to address just very straightforward physical properties like volume, flexibility, and the transforming qualities of light. But she's also interested in a kind of discourse between machine-made objects and the handcrafted. I find her very compelling, and again was thrilled to get to learn about her. And incidentally, her father is Saul LeWitt, which is not nothing, but a very cool piece, and it's a wall, like the previous piece. It's a wall-mounted sculpture, but she's exploring a lot of interesting stuff. Next up, the one and only David McGee. This piece is titled Meditation on Middle Passage from 2020. David is an extraordinary artist, but also you must know, if you don't know him personally, he's also just a really an incredible guy who has a brilliant mind. David was born in Louisiana, grew up in Detroit, and has lived and worked in Houston for a number of years. His paintings juxtapose image and language to comment on societal issues, principally that of the Black experience. And he's most known for his portraiture. This piece is, of course, a departure. This work in particular is a meditative piece that's meant to really engage the viewer in close observation. And I want to say in 2017, David embarked on a totally new body of work that was abstracting these concerns of his, concerns around conflict, around Blackness, around Black hair, around churches, around city planning. Pretty special to get to be party to his new body of work. And of course, his relationship with the CAM goes way back. He was featured in several CAM exhibitions since 1993 and had a 1998 solo exhibition. He's just a killer dude. This is a killer piece. I love everything I'm going to get to talk about, but this is definitely among those were I you, would heartily go for.
Okay, and next we have Bucky Miller's work, science fiction, recent work from 2018, and it's an edition of 3. It's a photograph, and this piece is deceiving because it's an image of a drawing or of a kind of constructed painting, and Bucky's work really pushes against the idea of sort of heavily constructed conceptual photography or sort of tableau photography, and instead uses ideas of construction and deconstruction. And the work has a playfulness to it, both in terms of its form and the content within. Bucky was featured at CAM in 2018 as part of the Art on the Lawn with Two Raccoons project. And many of you may have seen his recent Instagram takeover, which was itself a kind of 24-hour tour de force, sort of day in the life of Bucky, which took us all to many places that we had never been before. It's really hilarious practice, which, imbues humor, I think, into his work, but also into his life as an artist. So Bucky's truly been a wonderful supporter of CAM, and is an incredibly engaging practice. Something really to look at here.
Except for me, Melissa Miller. I love Melissa's work. This is titled Pink Wall from 2003. It's a gouache on paper. It's a wee little guy. Melissa spent much of her life in rural central Texas and is based in Austin now. And her career began in a more abstract expressionist style, but moved towards landscape and figurative painting early on, and has been making that sort of work ever since. And it's she's known for her very technically rigorous paintings of fantastical and sometimes mythical animal scenes in these very lush landscapes. And Miller's works typically are quite immersive and grand in scale. And so this piece, in that it's rather diminutive, should be seen as a great opportunity for those for whom you might not have the space or the capacity for the work that you tend to know of hers. It's a very dear object, and of course, her relationship with the CAM goes way back. She was featured in several exhibitions, including 2 solo exhibitions in 1981 and 1986, and it's a little gem. And next up for me, Be Still My Heart, is Elizabeth Murray. I'm going to have to rein this one in. This piece is Study for Kind of Blue from 2004. Elizabeth Murray. So Elizabeth emerged as a painter in the 1970s and sort of re-emerged in the 2000s with a retrospective at MoMA. And I believe at the time of her retrospective at MoMA, she was one of maybe 5 women who'd been given such an honor at MoMA. She's known for her irregularly shaped canvases that tend to be a pretty monumental proportions. And this piece in particular is a study for a much larger work, but this object was gifted to the auction by the estate, which is pretty special. Murray's history with the CAM goes back to 1979 when she was first exhibited there, and of course the greatest news is she's going to be the subject of an upcoming exhibition titled Wildlife, Elizabeth Murray and Jesse Reeves. I will try and be brief here. For those who know of Elizabeth Murray, they love Elizabeth Murray. I can't express enough how important an artist she is. If you aren't yet familiar with her, you of course will be by the time the show comes around, and the auction will have passed. So I implore you to bid now while you have the chance. She reshaped modernist abstraction and created her own visual language that was just wildly high-spirited and cartoonish and covertly feminist. She's just extraordinary, and this is a great piece. I implore you to go after it, and I'm so thrilled that the CAM is going to have this show. So,
thank you. It's so thrilling to be able to offer this piece directly from the estate. As you know, in terms of timing, of course, it's a kind of precursor to wildlife, but it's also important to say that the work itself, the sale of this work, will directly benefit that exhibition. So it's a direct benefit to the exhibitions program at CAM and the show curated by Rebecca Madelon. Next is Karen Navarro, and I'll say that, you know, for me, this piece is so special because Karen is part of our current exhibition, Slowed and Throwed, which considers the legacy and influence of DJ Screw in Houston and beyond. And Karen's a young artist based in Houston. She's was born in Argentina and originally trained as a fashion designer and photographer. Excuse me. She brings that sensibility into this work. And as you can see, it's a kind of cut up photograph. So it's cut up and repositioned or reframed. The work explores issues of identity and manipulation. Also the idea of image making around the self, particularly in the context of social media landscape. This piece is embossed, which is somewhat unique process, but the work has an extraordinary depth, kind of momentum to it. It nearly vibrates. As with many of her works, it prompts the viewer to move around, look at it from multiple angles. And I think, you know, for a young artist based in Houston, clearly Karen has an extraordinary career and future ahead of her. We're so thrilled to be able to offer this, and please don't hold back. Okay, next is Mike Osborne's work, Test Target / National Mall. It's a recent work from 2019, and it's an archival inkjet print from an edition of 5. It's a large piece, 40 by 50, and for me, this is actually one of the most mysterious or kind of beguiling works in the auction. And Mike is an artist who typically makes images within places of power, so, or places that connote power. So whether it's the Pentagon or the National Mall or a federal building, and oftentimes he's looking for some uncanny aspect or some, let's say, peek behind the curtain. And here in this case, we're looking at what really seems to be a cinema screen backdrop or a movie theater screen backdrop. And what's projected onto that is the test pattern for calibration of a projector. So it's almost as if he's caught this very strange moment between the prototype in the event or the rehearsal in the event. And I think as a metaphor or as an analogy for our democracy, that feels pretty apt right now. The style of this work is both cinematic and documentary. It kind of slides between the two. Mike was featured in the 2014 PhotoFest biennial and was also a 2012 resident at Art Pace in San Antonio. Really wonderful work, and very, very glad to be able to offer it to you. So thank you for tuning in again. And if you missed our first segment, you can find it on CAM's YouTube channel or cam.org/auction. We have one more segment coming up later this week. Don't forget that bidding will be open until Saturday, June 27th at 9 p.m. See you soon. Thank you.